Thank you so much, Joanne, for meeting with me. I am doing a project for one of my classes this quarter called Reimagining the University, where we've been given the opportunity to think about a change that would positively influence our university. And my group had the idea of having more widespread use of the high flex model, where students are given multiple opportunities to show their learning and participate in person or online and synchronous or asynchronous modalities of class. So Professor Joanne, I'm taking a class with you this quarter where you're utilizing this model, and I wanted to ask you some questions about it and understand how this model works from the perspective of the professor. So to get us started,
Yeah.
would you be able to give a brief introduction of yourself and what you teach here at UW?
Thanks, Christine. I'm Joanne. I am the full-time lecturer for the Disability Studies program at UW. I've been teaching disability studies here since 2006. We're a pretty small program, and I'm the one dedicated faculty member. So at this point, I do teach a lot of the classes. I've been definitely thinking about ways to implement accommodations and ways to make classes accessible, because I think that disability studies classes need to be accessible, and that's always been high on my list of priorities. So once the pandemic came, that opened up a lot of new ways of thinking about this. Yeah.
But the first question I wanted to ask you is what you think are the benefits of giving students
Yeah.
multiple opportunities to show their participation in learning in class. So what have you noticed that works really well in the classroom with using the high flex model?
Yeah, that's a good things to think about. Given that I've always been teaching classes where I know there's a real diverse group of students. There's students who, maybe have disability status, maybe have accommodations, but maybe also just have a lot of other stuff that's going on, and it's always not real predictable or real set. So I've always had the policy in my courses, please let me know what I can do. What can we do so that you can engage with this class? And that has been my priority for many years, to say, some people have accommodations, that's great, we'll implement those, but other stuff might be going on. So if you have the capacity to let me know, then let's work through it, because I would rather have students have the chances to engage with materials in ways that are available to them, that make sense to them, that they can actually succeed at. I would rather have everybody, the whole idea of courses and programs that have to quote unquote weed out students is not something that I've ever been interested in. I would rather have you here and we're all going to learn together. Multiple opportunities to engage with material, multiple ways to show your learning. We call that universal design in the disability world. How can you set things up such that the largest number of people can do the stuff without having to make some modifications? And usually that comes down to just saying, let's be flexible. Let's think of maybe there's 2 or 3 different ways. For folks who had some barriers around typical modes of participation, I would say, hey, let me know. Maybe we can talk through the material in office hours. Maybe you can do something in writing on a discussion board instead of being in class. Because for some folks, being synchronous, it doesn't work in the sense of your brain doesn't necessarily work that way, right? You don't really get your thoughts out. But if you can think about it and go back and write it down later, and then other people will read it and think about what you're saying and respond to what you're saying in writing, that's great. Why wouldn't I want to foster that type of conversation? What I'm doing now, which is to log into a Zoom or a Panopto and record everything. Give the slides to people beforehand. Make sure they can access them later. Why not? Really, right? We have the technology, and if people can then access our conversations and then contribute to our conversations asynchronously, why not try to do that? So that's what I've seen with the high flex model. It's like building on principles and practices I had already had, but now with some new tools.
Right. And I think that actually supplements the learning that happens in traditional classrooms.
Right.
So thank you so much for these answers. I know that you definitely gave lots of advice, but for professors who would be interested in making their classes more accessible, is there 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you've picked up over time teaching courses like these?
Yeah, the first thing that popped in my mind that I always want to tell people, trust your students. If they say they need X, Y, and Z, they need X, Y, and Z. And they will help us as the teachers to figure out how to make learning work for them. Right? Why are we so distrustful? That is so baked into our our mindset in this capitalist economy, society, blah, 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 right? Oh, somebody's got to be faking. Somebody's got to try to take advantage of something. I don't think I'm getting taken advantage of when I say to folks, please let me know what you need and let's work together to make it work. It is still, students by and large are still embarrassed to ask for help. It's so ingrained in us that help is a bad thing, that it's weakness. Display justice says we all need help at times. Right? We're all interdependent. We're all mutually reliant on each other in different ways. And we can identify that, we can value it, we can support each other in getting through tough times. We're all vulnerable at times. So when I kind of start from those disability justice principles, it makes me understand, and it brings us together as a community, right? Where we can also say, hey, sometimes stuff's going down for Joanne and she just can't do X, Y, and Z. And the students can also kind of, be flexible around that, and you can be flexible with each other. We instructors need to get together, and we need to advocate for ourselves. We need to tell the university that we need a little bit more supports. We need some tech supports. We need some pieces of technology that are missing. My department has made those things available to me, so I'm using them. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but it's doable. I really need a teaching assistant over in the Zoom to help me monitor what questions are coming. But again, that's something that the university could support. So I encourage people to give it a try and listen to the students because they are seeing it happening and they can advise you about things you need to do. But really, we need to advocate. We need to tell the university, we're interested in this type of teaching and learning. Help us to do it well. Yeah. So that's a bunch of things. But the main one is really students know what they need. Listen to them.
Right, right. Thank you so much for these answers. So much food for thought, lots of things that I can incorporate into our analysis. So thank you so much again.
Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity, Christine.
Yes.
Yeah.